Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro's racist history. Brazil is the only country outside US and Africa with the most prominent population of African descent. However, the black minorities have been deprived of their citizenship rights as compared to other demographics by the current outgoing President Jair Bolsonaro. Greetings and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we will discuss Bolsonaro's racist history, his leadership and controversial hires, his open hostility and hate towards the LGBT community, and his abuse of minorities in Brazil. If you have not done so, kindly subscribe to my channel and don't forget to hit the notification bell for the latest updates. So, let's get going. Jair Bolsonaro, a politician and former military commander from Brazil, was born on March 21, 1955, and has served as the country's 38th president since January 1, 2019. He was elected to office in 2018 as a representative of the Social Liberal Party, which he later transformed into a conservative party before severing connections. He joined the Liberal Party in 2021. Councillor of Rio de Janeiro, 1989 to 1991. Bolsonaro joined politics in 1988 when he was elected as a municipal councillor for the Christian Democratic Party in Rio de Janeiro, PDC. According to his son, Flibio's autobiography, Bolsonaro was running for councillor since, at the time, it was his only chance to stop being persecuted by his superiors. His entrance into politics was accidental because he wanted to pursue a military career instead. Federal Deputy for Rio de Janeiro, 1991 to 2018. Bolsonaro was only in the Rio de Janeiro Municipal Chamber for 2 years. He was described as a conservative, reserved, and quiet council member who didn't participate much. During his tenure as councillor, he primarily promoted military interests, such as retirement benefits for former commanders. Bolsonaro was chosen as a federal deputy for the Christian Democratic Party in the 1990 elections. From 1991 through 2018, he served in 7 consecutive terms. Over the years, he has had affiliations with several other political parties in Brazil. With 465,000 votes, he received more votes than any other congressman in Rio de Janeiro in 2014. Presidency 2019 to 2022. On January 1, 2019, Bolsonaro took over as President of the Republic of Brazil and replaced the then-current leader, Michel Temer. Before his inauguration, Bolsonaro started assembling his cabinet, naming astronaut Marcos Pontes as his Minister of Science and Technology and economist Paulo Guedes as his economy minister. When Bolsonaro unveiled his final minister, Ricardo Salles, in December, the number of members of his government increased from 15 to 22. 29 people made up Michel Temer's cabinet, who was his predecessor. Jair Bolsonaro racist history. President Jair Bolsonaro, who has been accused of making comments that were not only racist but also homophobic and sexist in the past, claims that racism is a minor issue in Brazil. Brazil has made significant progress over the past 10 years under a string of center-left national governments, particularly in eradicating institutionalized and social racism through the Bolsa Familia social program and self-determination affirmative action laws for Black, Brown, and indigenous Brazilians in federal public universities and the workforce. Affirmative action in Brazil is known as quota law. As of 2012, federally funded public colleges were required to reserve 50% of all university seats for students who attended public secondary schools. 25% of the seats within this 50% limit are reserved for low-income students, and 25% are not. For self-identified Black, Brown, and Indigenous kids, a separate subquota within each 25% is set aside by their share of the state's population. 2014 saw the expansion of affirmative action into federal public employment, with a statute requiring that 20% of all national civil servant positions be held for applicants who self-identify as Black or Brown. These and other advances in human rights were in danger due to the rise of the far-right presidential candidate Jair Bolsonaro, who was elected president of Brazil on October 28, 2019, following a runoff with the center-left candidate Fernando Haddad. Bolsonaro has regularly ridiculed and denigrated most Brazilians. including women, the LGBT community, Black Brazilians, and indigenous Brazilians. He has also advocated hate speech. Bolsonaro, a career politician and retired soldier, publicly supports the military regime that ruled Brazil from 1964 to 1985 and justifies torture. Bolsonaro has claimed to be, in quotes, anti-establishment, although his political career, which began in Rio de Janeiro in 1998, has seen him associated with 9 different political organizations. Bolsonaro has been most openly hostile and hateful towards the LGBT community. Bolsonaro has shown the most overt anger and hatred toward the LGBT population, boasting that he would beat a same-sex couple, cuddling in public and advising beating up a son who exhibits gay behavior. But Bolsonaro has often stated that he does not include women, Black people, or indigenous populations in his definition of those deserving of respect and full citizenship, because he views them as somehow not belonging in Brazil. In a TV interview in 2018, he specifically attacked the legitimacy of Brazil's affirmative action policies in higher education, claiming that because he had never enslaved anyone, neither he nor Brazil as a whole had any obligation to pay back the country's majority Black population, which was held in servitude for 300 years. Source: TV Cultura. The fact that poverty has color in Brazil, where the bulk of the poor and illiterate are Black, is painfully indicative that Brazil was the last nation in the Western Hemisphere to abolish slavery in 1871 formally. In contrast, Bolsonaro believes that slavery is primarily the fault of Black people because, in his words, the Portuguese didn't even tread on African soil. It was the Blacks who handed over the slaves in an apparent effort to absolve the Brazilian state and society of their collective responsibility for centuries of racism. Attack of Bolsonaro on demarcation. Beyond affirmative action, Bolsonaro has also challenged the protection and demarcation of indigenous land, which prevents commercial exploitation of indigenous territory and the inhabitants of quilombos, historically rural settlements of formerly enslaved people who are now autonomous communities of their Africa. In 2017, Bolsonaro talked contemptuously about a visit to a quilombo in a speech to the Hebraic Club of Rio de Janeiro, highlighting the residents' obesity and how they don't accomplish anything, and would not even be able to breed, and arguing against spending money on such settlements. I recently went to a small quilombo outside Belo Horizonte, Minas Gerais, and discovered a peaceful, hardworking neighborhood with a church and a community center. I also found no evidence that the population there is more obese than in the rest of Brazil. The effects of Bolsonaro's vitriolic hate speech. An upsurge in violent homophobic attacks against gay men is already being felt due to Bolsonaro's virulent hate speech. Homophobic rhetoric is so prevalent in Brazil that it is not even mentioned. His vehement resistance to affirmative action, indigenous, quilombola communities, feminism rights, women's the humanity of LGBT people, and feminism rights women is a significant setback for Brazilian democracy and human rights. While it may surprise and perplex non-Brazilians that a candidate with such extreme and anti-democratic views could not only become popular, but also win the presidency of the most populous country in Latin America, my informal conversations with Brazilians of all colors, asking them, is Bolsonaro racist? May explain why. The majority of them do not consider Bolsonaro to be racist. Despite his numerous comments criticizing affirmative action and suggesting that Black students should be denied admission to universities, in response to a query from Brazilian artist Preta Gil about how he would feel if one of his kids wed a Black lady on the television program Que Se Que in 2011, he hinted that marrying a Black person is equivalent to not having been raised well. Even though these remarks are on the record, his fans routinely brush them off as false news. The most insidious effect of Bolsonaro's verbal poison, the profoundly ingrained homophobia, sexism, and racism already present in Brazilian society limit, socially and possibly even legally, full citizenship rights for Brazil's most disadvantaged communities. The young gay man attempting to reconcile his sexuality with his faith, the millions of Brazilian women trying to balance career and family life, seen as in quotes their responsibility, and the adolescent Black girl striving to accept her in quote bad attitude, Black identity, and embrace her natural Black hair, labeled in quote ein or bad colloquially. Bolsonaro offers a vision of the world in which the white, male, straight norm is solidified, reinforced. Although many women joined the Heleno movement before the election to voice their opposition to Bolsonaro's sexism, it will take a concerted effort from all of Brazil's human rights and social activities, as well as individual Brazilians, to defend democracy and prevent Bolsonaro from regressing Brazil. There are indications of both individual and group resistance. I was pleasantly delighted to find a giant banner stating that racism, sexism, and homophobia are not accepted here, when I recently visited a private institution in Belo Horizonte, a city not known for its activism. An independent artist has produced artwork with the words, "Liberty means not being afraid." American singer and civil rights activist Nina Simone is close to the main public space. Although Bolsonaro may have sown seeds of hatred, they are being resisted by seedlings of hope. Jair Bolsonaro isn't new to controversial hires. Damares Alves declared that this was a new period in Brazil. Guys dress blue and girls wear pink, when she was appointed Minister of Women, Family and Human Rights. In her first address as a minister, she declared, "Nobody will stop us from calling girls princesses and boys princes. We are going to eliminate this misuse of ideological brainwashing." Her defenders mocked her while her followers cheered. Her controversial stance on extending women's rights is still present. Alves, a pro-life evangelical pastor, recently supported a campaign to promote virginity to lower Brazil's stubbornly high rate of adolescent pregnancies. But Jair Bolsonaro's administration enjoys stirring things up. He criticizes Brazilian politics as it is practiced there, and has done it once more by appointing Sergio Camargo, who has caused controversy. Rio de Janeiro. Many were not surprised when the leader of a powerful government organization charged with protecting black culture in Brazil referred to the anti-racism movement as scum. The appointment of black journalist Sergio Camargo, who has a history of denying racism, even exists in his nation, as president of the Fundação Cultural Palmeiras last year by right-wing Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, has been contentious from the start. The government-funded organization defending the economic and cultural rights of people descended from enslaved people has written articles criticizing Brazil's most well-known black abolitionist leader during his leadership. The descendants of enslaved Africans in Brazil, known as quilombolas, are more concerned about Bolsonaro's ability to obstruct their attempts to gain the rights to the land they have lived on for generations. Bolsonaro has made it clear that he wants to do just that. Both a request for comment and a list of inquiries for Camargo have yet to receive a response from Palmeiras. The O Globo newspaper released a statement on June 5 in response to the audio of Camargo's racial remarks. It stated that all actions taken while his leadership were in line with the institutional mission, legality, and morals. The population of Brazil's 5,000 quilombos, rural communities founded by formerly enslaved people, is estimated to number in the millions, but exact data still need to be provided. Many people lack access to both running water and electricity. The formal titles to the land quilombolas live on are essential to protecting their rights because without the deeds, they cannot get social benefits such as subsidized housing. Brazil's 1988 constitution guaranteed their rights to the land, but obtaining the documents requires Palmeiras to recognize a community as a quilombo, something Rodrigues said they no longer trusted to do. According to him, Fundação Palmeiras used to award roughly 100 certificates of honor yearly. They had only gotten a few dozen these years, according to Rodrigues so far. Rodrigues is a member of the National Coordination of the Landless Workers Movement, MST, and represents the entity in coordinating Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva's PT campaign for the presidency. Conclusion: Jair Bolsonaro, the president of Brazil, also known as the Trump of the tropics, has had a very eventful year. He positioned himself in 2019 to become the fully deserved winner of Survival International's Racist of the Year award. Here are some reasons why Bolsonaro deserves the 2019 Racist of the Year award and how his policies endanger indigenous people and the future of our planet. He has tried to weaken FUNI, the Department for Indigenous Affairs, through eliminating protections for indigenous lands. He has opened up indigenous regions for resource extraction and abolished the indigenous healthcare system. Bolsonaro's pro-business, anti-environmental, and anti-indigenous policy agenda has led to an increase of 44% in the number of attacks on indigenous territory this year thus far, with a 101% increase in the number of areas affected by these invasions. Compared to the same period in 2018, there were 80% more fires in the Amazon in 2019. While critics acknowledge that Bolsonaro has occasionally used offensive language in racial contexts, they also charge him with a subtler kind of discrimination for endorsing laws that disproportionately target people of color. He has championed acts such as sending heavily armed security forces into primarily black and mixed-race slums to fight crime, giving police officers who are killed in the line of additional duty protection, and taking away the land rights of indigenous groups to promote development. So that's it for today's video. What are your thoughts and opinions on President Bolsonaro? Please share them on the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon for more informative content. Thanks for watching and see you on the next one.